Hello everyone, this is RaySpace, and welcome back to Realism Overhaul Sandbox in Kerbal Space Program 1.12, where it is time to test the Kasei rocket with Neutron Boosters while having the reusability stuff in place. So we have Pekka's script controlling things right now, but we don't have a drone ship in the correct location. We're trying for a drone ship landing, but since the boosters are going to push this out way further than it normally would go, we need to figure out where the drone ship needs to be and where the core is going to be targeting. We're not trying to recover the neutron boosters just yet, we're just trying to recover the core, but there is a problem with that, right? The core is going to be going much faster. Will it survive is the question. Pekka preferred not to do a braking burn on the script right now, but in this case it probably does need to do a braking burn, but we're going to see that in a sec. And probably there's going to be, well, I mean, I don't even know with a braking burn whether it would survive or not, to be honest. But here we're trying to see whether it can survive without one. And actually the fairings weren't supposed to go immediately like that anyway, but that's okay. Probably a good time for them to go anyway. But it looks like, based on the script, that the boosters push us out basically 430 kilometers beyond where we were going before. So that's how far away the drone ship needs to be, maybe 450 or so. But yeah, the temperature is really hot. If you're wondering whether the heat tolerances on the core are unreasonable, well, they can't do this much, let's put it that way. So that's the thing I have to set aside for when the script gets modified. Maybe we can do the braking burn, but is it worthwhile to do the braking burn? We weren't really carrying that much up in the first place with the boosters helping out. So it's a good question whether having the boosters plus the recoverability is going to end up helping us. Now there is another option, which is the one you see here, which is the Kasei rocket with wings landing downrange. However, in this case we accidentally had a bit of a mishap on launch and broke off part of one of the wings, so I had to try again, moving the boosters up a little bit so they didn't clip the launch pad, I think was the main problem. So we have two neutron boosters on one side in this case, not on opposite side, because we have the wing on the other side, and also the tiles that we don't want to have complicated by the fact that they have a booster attached to them. And it is balanced reasonably well enough as long as we have proper things controlling it, like KOS. In this case, we get the boosters off. There were a few launches where that was a little bit of a problem, and the whole thing rolls over in preparation for coming back down. And it gets to expend the fuel because we can just use the residuals in the tank for RCS, so we don't need to save anything there. And the payload goes off, but we follow this down instead. It took a few tries for me to figure... for some reason, the way I thought that I needed to bring this down didn't end up being right. I was trying for 30-degree pitch, but it turns out that that was too much and it would flip out. So 25 is what I ultimately went with. It's not great because you want more pitch in order to limit the G-forces on it. And right now, the balance seems a little bit off compared to when I had previously tested it. So it's getting more G-force than it ought to. I want a limit of about 11 for this. It does encounter quite a lot of G's trying to land this downrange with wings like this, because we're trying to eke out as much velocity out of it as possible and come down from a fairly high height. You know, it's already past 200 kilometers, but yeah, we don't want to see 15 G's being pulled on this. That's not reasonable. It probably should snap apart. Don't tell far. But anyway, we have that, and I had to immediately turn the pitch down so that it wouldn't flip out or anything, so it would pitch down, but it's really on the edge of that right now. So that's not great, but it did survive this time, so that's all right. And instead of getting over to the Bahamas, which are further along the island that you see over to the right there on the horizon, I couldn't make that, so we're heading over to Miami. And this was with a 100-ton payload on the top. And then the question is whether we can get that payload to orbit with this being recovered like this. We did also save the fuel in the neutron boosters so they could land on a drone ship, not return to launch site though. So we are saving fuel on the boosters, and in this case we're not really saving fuel, we're just reserving the RCS and then having the wings and landing gear. The wings and landing gear are heavy, and we'll soon see that the benefits of this aren't exactly huge, having the boosters and still trying to recover everything because of the added mass that we have to put on here. I didn't have a runway prepared here in the vicinity of Miami, so it's going to be a bit rough as we touch down. It's a very high speed landing, as you might expect with this thing, and we lost the body flap, basically, is what happened. Ultimately, I decided that maybe we should lengthen the main landing gear a bit. It's a little bit short. Of course, I was trying to save mass as much as possible by keeping the main landing gear small, but it would help in terms of keeping the body flap happy. I always lose the body flap on things, so anyway, it's just a thing. The nose gear is also a little bit long, but yeah, I'm really going with a minimal amount of landing gear on this as it is. Anyway, so ultimately I managed to land that. This was all done during a live stream where there were other failures, but that was because I was picking the wrong pitch. I was going with 30 earlier. So next I wanted to test the payload capacity and still trying to bring up 110 tons with it, and this time we'll follow the payload up. But as I've intimated, I'm not really satisfied with this payload capacity because when you think about it, with just the core without any boosters, we're landing on a drone ship and still getting 85 to 90 tons to orbit. And in this case, we're carrying 110 tons, so we've got 2 extra boosters, and we can do 20 tons more. I mean, you know, the boosters aren't that big compared to the core and everything, so you could think of it as reasonable like that. But you know, maybe I could just do an extra launch without having all this extra business. Then it'll be simpler. So, and that assumes that we can get the 110 tons to orbit, which as it turns out we can't. So it's not 20 tons more. In fact, and once I go back to the VAB, it seems like it's more like 12 tons more, 102 tons. So that's not a whole lot. It's a little bit of a mystery, but part of it is because the rocket itself is very optimized for low Earth orbit right now. So adding boosters doesn't do a whole lot. After all, it can lift off without the boosters, unlike the rockets that can't. So here we see the second stage going off, and to be honest, the KOS script wasn't doing a great job of handling it. It pitched down a lot and then had to pitch up to compensate. So maybe a little bit of tweaking of the KOS script would have helped, but we end up short by about 200 meters per second. And then I go into the VAB and we will see what kind of load I can carry with 200 meters per second more. So if I reduce the payload and get 200 meters per second, how much does that end up being? And it turns out to be 102 tons or so. So that is the verdict, and so I'm dissatisfied with that. Maybe if we try for a drone ship thing and do the braking burn, we might get more payload capacity with the boosters, but maybe the fact that we have to reserve extra fuel for the braking burn in order to make sure it survives is going to cut into our payload capacity anyway. So, yep, Kasei with boosters might not be great if we're trying to save the boosters. If we go back to the old Sagitta way, where we're just dumping the boosters and not trying to recover them, maybe it's a better deal. Because I think that we got more payload capacity in that situation, just expending the boosters, than we do with the situation where we're trying to recover them. So I'll have to give that a thought. For now, with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.